to Chanel's Reality. I'm Chanel, and this is my reality. Hey. Listen, I'm trying out my new soundtrack. Hold on one second. Welcome to Chanel's Reality. Okay. So listen, I got myself a little background music, so y'all can just chime down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about it. It's not supposed to be that loud, so let me turn it down. So I always come on here and I always say, I'm Chanel and this is my reality. My husband bought me um, this little thingy. Have you ever seen one of these? It's a heart and it changes colors and stuff. So when I came home yesterday, it was here on my little in my little studio. So shout out to hubby, love you baby. Um, let's turn this down just a little bit. But I'm trying to revamp my channel because I'm not exactly sure what I want my channel to be. Like initially, Chanel's Reality came about because I would always be on other people's panels, um, you know, having a good old time, spicing up their channel, and being who I am, right? And then at some point, I'm trying to figure out what's the right color. I'm trying to figure out this remote. Let me see. I don't know if that's a good one. Or if that's, I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure it out at some point. But yeah, so I used to go on other people's channels and, had a lot of fun reviewing like the Real Housewives of wherever or reality TV. And so I'm Chanel and I'm always going to give you my reality. Whether or not you like it, it's on you. But it ain't changing over here. So there's that. Um, and so I started my channel about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And it took a while for me to get anybody to come over here. I think I might have had 20 20 subscribers, and most of those people, I'm sure all of them were my friends or family or whatever, maybe some people I worked with. um, but what I discovered in that journey is a lot like what I've discovered in life in general, which is go at your own pace. you know I'll never forget there was this young lady whenever I was in high school, I believe, probably like a junior or senior in high school, and she came to our church, and she was like one of the, little, like a special speaker or whatever you would call it, guest speaker or something. And it wasn't really formal because, brown people in the South, we go to the hood to go to church. I mean, I don't like to, you know, say all people, but I'm just saying that's my experience. So, anyways, it wasn't some big, huge mega church like the church I attend now, which is Lakewood. But at any rate, she came there and she had graduated from college. I think she may have been like 3, 4, or 5 years older than me or something like that. She was a young adult, and I remember one of the things that always stuck with me is she said, "It doesn't have to happen in 4 years." And if you go to any kind of normal high school, they're preaching to you from probably ninth through the 12th grade is you got to go to college, you got to go to college, and you got to do it in 4 years, and you need to make something of yourself, that type of thing, right? And when she said it doesn't have to be done in 4 years, it opened up my mind a little bit like, oh, I already be by my own damn drum. Let's be very clear about that. But in general, I don't really necessarily take anyone else's advice. I might let you talk to me about something. I'll mull it over in my head, and I think if I find or figure it's intelligent and smart, whatever, then I'll, maybe I'll adjust. But in general, I'm a whole Leo, and so I'm just gonna, like I said, beat to my own drum. But that it kind of changed my mindset and my perspective. Really, more than anything, it probably unknowingly, unconsciously relieved if I had any type of like anxiety. about going to college or any, concerns or anything like that. So um, I use that example to say, like, you can't and you shouldn't, in my opinion, live your life according to someone else's standards in general. Meaning, you should be a law abiding, non hateful, uh, polite, assertive, truth telling, honest human being in general. But for whatever you want for your life and your family and your career or whatever it is, that should come from you and whomever the people are that you have in your circle. And that doesn't matter what type of circle it is. It could be your circle could be you and your boyfriend, you and your girlfriend, you and your mom, you and your baby, whatever, whomever it is. Um, so just take everything that people say with a grain of salt. Old people will say, chew up the meat, spit out the bones. That essentially means hold on to what's relevant as it applies to your life. Stop trying to categorize people. We do that, especially in America. We like, what box do we put you in? You go in the white box, the black box, the Asian box. Are you old? Are you young? Are you sick? Are you poor? Are you rich? Or are you bisexual, homosexual, heterosexual, rich, poor, middle class, upper class, on and on and on. I say all the time on my channel, listen, God made us originals, so stop being copies. It just is what it is. As human beings, though, in general, we live in routines, which is why when someone is out of the routine, we look at them and we're like judgy, wudgy, and all of those types of things because our toxic society has told us there's one way to live. You got to go according to these rules, these laws, these whatever it is. You got to fall in line somewhere. And to a degree, that's probably helpful, but it shouldn't define everything you are, who you become, who you decide not to become, and what you do with your life. Because ultimately, we only have that time in between our birth and our death to either do it right, be happy, be sad, be controlled, be in charge, be listened to, whatever it is. You have that little dash, the one that on your gravestone, if you end up having a gravestone, not everybody has one, let's just start there. That little dash in between your birth and your death, it should matter to you. It should. It's not always going to matter because we have people who have, mental illness. And when I say people who have mental illness, I'm talking about the ones that are detrimental to our society. So ones like conduct disorder. Go look it up if you haven't. That's one. Well, I'll give you a baseline of what conduct disorder is. It usually happens starting sometime in your childhood or early teenage years, where there are people who are basically have no regard for other people's well-being. They're typically violent and breaking stuff and doing that type of thing. Those are that's and I'm giving you a kind of like a brief overview snapshot of conduct disorder. Um, so like I said, outside of that, things that sometimes people are just born the way that they are. Some people develop mental illness, right? Some people are traumatized and end up becoming mentally ill. Um, some people use drugs and alcohol, and those things can you can have a mental disorder that's onset by um, drugs. So for example, or exacerbated by drugs. So for example, I worked in psych hospitals, right? If someone comes into the hospital on an EDO, which is kind of like basically the police brought them because you were doing something someone probably called the police that was maybe unsafe to yourself or unsafe to others, and so they brought you in against your own will, basically. You're not voluntarily being there. You're being committed for however many days because of whatever was going on with you. Um, but if I'm doing an examination of that person, an assessment, and they're super paranoid, and let's say I do that assessment on Thursday, I come back on Tuesday, hypothetically, and they're not as paranoid, there's a high degree of certainty that even if I don't look inside their chart, there's probably some sort of drug that they've used. My guess would be cocaine or something like that, which in itself causes paranoia. So if you're already a paranoid person and then you start using that, it's probably gonna, you know. And the reason I say, I could probably make that assumption because the decline in those symptoms that you had, those presenting problems that you had when you came in. Like there are people out here chasing me here, they're outside, and that type of thing. That's hyper paranoid. And that's, like I said, that's drug induced. Some people just have, they're just diagnosed with paranoia, extreme paranoia. They have an I would say abnormal um, fear that they're being watched or someone is doing something or something is imminent, something's going to happen to them. That's typically what paranoia is. But anyway, today we're going to talk about forgiveness. Everything on Chanel's reality is, in my opinion, for entertainment purposes only. It's all alleged. This is my reality. Do y'all like my little thingy? I kind of like it. Listen, let's start it over. And y'all can tell me if y'all like it or if y'all don't like it. Okay, anyways. So, hold on. All right, so like I said, today we're going to talk about forgiveness. So, we're going to listen to a TED Talk, a little bit of a TED Talk, but forgiveness to me is about freeing yourself from the burden of anger. Think about that for a second. It's about freeing you from the burden of being angry. Because people who don't forgive someone typically are angry about whatever that person did to them or didn't do for them. That's usually why you don't want to be, you don't want to forgive. And also, too, you want to justify. You feel justified in why you're not forgiving them. And I struggled for many years not forgiving because I felt justified, okay? You did this egregious act to me and I'm supposed to forgive you? You're not even accepting any sort of accountability? How dare you think that I'm about to forgive your ass? Like, just very self-assured, being who I am, okay? But without forgiveness, you can't move forward. And what I mean by that is you could move forward, meaning life isn't going to stop just because you choose not to forgive someone. But you can't move forward outside of that anger. Every time you see that person or someone says their name or you smell them or whatever it is, you get triggered. You're right back where you were on the day that whatever happened. So you got to free yourself from that burden, because it is a burden of anger. And like I said, we can justify it. I'm sure all of the people who have been sexually assaulted, physically assaulted, cussed out by the supervisor, plotted against at their job, lost their job, got fired for no reason. Someone lied on them about something. They're in jail for the rest of their life and they ain't even do it. Someone wrecked their car and they just got a new job and now they can't keep their job because somebody wrecked their car. They don't have, someone stole all their rent money for the month of June. There's various reasons why people choose to not forgive. And we can sit in the justification how we want to. It's just not going to help you. So, like I said, we're going to talk about forgiveness because I think we all have been in a situation where we felt like, I can't forgive this person. Do you know what they did to me? If they did that to you, would you forgive? We've all been in that boat. And if you haven't been, you will be at some point. It just is what it is. It's natural. And let me start off by saying this too, because emotions are normal. There are a lot of people you will encounter in life that will say things to you like, you need to move on. That happened 15, 20 years ago. Why are you still... There are many people that are going to, I promise you, in your life, tell you that. And you might be that person. Tell others that happened. Da, 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 you need to move on. Da, da, da. You can't micromanage or manage other people's trauma. It's their trauma, not yours. So stop going and telling people, yo, okay, I was about to say you're uneducated, but no, it's their trauma. You can't micromanage it. You don't get to put a timeline on when someone else heals from their trauma. You don't have that authority. And there are lots of people that walk around in the world, and I call them well meaning morons because they mean well. They do. But they say dumb shit and they don't even realize it's dumb because the toxic conditioning has told them that this is okay to say to someone, especially a grieving person, right? Someone will say, let's say I had a miscarriage, right? And somehow my best friend or my auntie or my grandma or the lady at the church might be like, well, honey, you know, you're young, you can have another child. How do you know that? How? I didn't get to full term on this one, and you're sure that I'm just because I'm young, I'll be able to have another one. Maybe the reason that I had a miscarriage in the first place was because maybe my uterus or whatever, my body parts aren't working properly. And maybe I'll never have a baby come to full term. But people still will come to you and they'll say, and they mean well. I promise you they do. But they're a moron because they don't know any other thing to say. They don't know what to do. So I always err on the side of shut the hell up if you don't know what to say. Just don't say anything. Or like, let's say someone is grieving the death of whomever it might be. Their baby daddy, their grandma, their auntie, their best friend, their mom, their dad, whomever it is. People will tell them at some point in their life, it's time to move on. You don't get to tell me shit about my grief. Not one thing. In my mind, grief is love that has nowhere to go. We all have emotions. It's natural. But when you look at the emotions, I try to look at emotions like that, like the iceberg. You know how you see those pictures online? There's an iceberg there in the water, and it's peeking up, let's say, 15 feet in the air. And then they show you a picture under the water that's massive, right? Well, that's to me kind of like how I look at emotions, right? So the part of the iceberg people might see or that you may present is anger. But the part that they don't see is what's underneath that anger, which could be a myriad of things. Could be fear, disappointment, personal challenges, unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment. Could be a whole bunch of things. But it's presenting to the world as anger. Are you wrong for being angry? No. It's a natural human response to things that anger you. But people, be assured, people will tell you, you need to, you can't be angry. Yes, you can. You can. You can be angry, you can be sad, you can be excited, you can be happy, you can be, whatever it is. But your emotions, the thing about emotions is you have to decide how you want to respond when you have those emotions. Especially the ones like fear, frustration, anger, those types of things. How do I want to respond? Sadness, depression, how do I want to respond? Instead of going from whatever triggered you directly to the response, some little steps in between there. Like maybe take a beat, take some time, talk to someone, listen to some music, think about whatever the person did or said, and maybe why they perhaps did or said whatever they did or said to you before you go automatically to your response. This is a form of, I would say, emotional intelligence. Being able to accept some information in that has caused you some sort of negative response or negative emotion, and figuring out how, when that person or that situation presents itself again, how I want to respond, how you want to respond to whatever that situation is. So listen, yesterday, listen, I don't know. Listen, I'm gonna be honest. There's been multitude of times in my life where I was like, you know what, I quit life today. Yeah, I'm done. Okay. I remember the school that I went to, one of the schools I graduated from, Texas Southern University, here in the great state of Texas. But anyways, that's one of the schools I graduated from. University of Houston is the other one. But I remember probably my sophomore year, and this is before we had all of the, devices like that we have now and the internet and all that kind of stuff. It was just on the verge of like being what it is now. Um, and there were two things that happened. I can give you two little, examples. One, you came to school, you called the bursar's office and they told you, yes, we have your Pell Grant or we have your, refund check ready, right? So you ready because you like, I didn't spend my last money on this, this, and this, and I need this money to get my lights cut on and pay for my, gas and whatever it is, right? You confident because these people done told you, yeah, that your money's ready. And then you get to that school and someone says, well, I don't know who told you that. your level of understanding is a negative 1,000. At least mine was. Um, and I cried. I was so angry. And then too, I didn't have a car, so I was riding the bus. And where I lived was the suburbs. There are no buses in the suburbs. So like my mom would have to drive me to something called a park and ride. Okay. Then on the parking ride, you got to get on these long buses that take people who like typically work downtown or something like that, so that they don't have to have the burden of actually, driving. They don't have to do that. They get to type on the computer and, make whatever, you know, complete whatever assignments they needed before work or read a book or whatever it is. Take a nap on your way to work, right? And I'm just kind of like, it's hot outside. I got to take 3 buses to get to school. So that means my mom's dropping me off at like 5 in the morning to get to school. It takes me 3 buses to get there. And I'm there until probably, what, 2:30, 3 p.m. And then I have to get back on the bus or buses to get home, to get to the parking ride. And then walk from the parking ride to the Popeye's chicken that I was working at for until 5 o'clock. I'm sorry, arrive for 5 o'clock p.m. and work until midnight, and then go home and start all over again. So I already got my mind ready for this $3,500 Pell Grant that y'all say I have. And then I get over to the school and y'all have it. Those type of days, I quit life a whole bunch of times. Quit life because it's like, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? What are we doing? I need this money so I can get a car. So I have to stop riding the bus. Don't get me started. So I know I quit life a few times due to financial aid not coming through in a timely manner. And then another time I remember I had gotten a job working for Child Protective Services. I was probably like 22 years old or something like that. And I still was going to school. And I parked my car. And somehow I had picked up my paycheck from work. And I think my paycheck maybe was like, just because I was so poor. But anyway, I think my paycheck from the state was probably like $1,700. Let's just say that's what it was. Or maybe $2,200. Um, when I opened my car door, that little paper check went out. It went out the door. I didn't know it though. Yeah, didn't know it. Mm-mm. And I remember driving off, and I don't know at what point I realized I couldn't find the check. Maybe I had gotten to the bank. Gotten to the bank and couldn't find a damn check. And I'm like, losing it. Because this is my only paycheck to pay my rent, to pay, my light bill, gas, food, whatever, right? And I can't find it. I quit life that day too. I went into the ugly cry. Y'all know that cry? Like, ugly cry, okay? Went to the ugly cry. But listen, God, He had some mercy on me, or either my guardian angels was like, just lighten up on her. Like, lighten up. Just, they was up there, on my behalf. Because I came back to the school and the paper check was still there on the ground. So I bring those things up because when life hands you something that's horrible, or you witness something that's horrible, or you go through a very traumatic part of your life, and all of us have trauma people can say they don't have that. We all do. We all had some sort of situation that made us cry, made us, maybe not believe in ourselves. We felt rejected, fearful, whatever it is. We've all had those moments in life. It's a part of life. And that's why I say, when people say, oh, you're being emotional, it's just like, shut the hell up. It's my emotions. And if I want to be emotional, I can. But if you want to grow, you can't stay where you are. Think of it like, you know how we have those baby back ribs or we have lamb chops? The reason we have the baby back ribs and lamb chops is because they don't allow those animals, they put them in a cage when they're babies, right? And then they don't allow them to grow. That's how come the lamb chops are small. That's how come you can have baby back ribs, because that pig is small. It's still a baby. That's hence the name baby back ribs, right? So if you are not allowed to grow, and if you or you don't choose to, you can get stuck in an endless cycle of unforgiveness, anger, frustration, fear, on and on and on. Whatever, fill in the blank with whatever emotion that you want to add there. That's not to say you can't have that emotion. This is about realizing that you're about to get triggered, or you are triggered, and you have to figure out how you want to respond. So, but today we're going to talk about forgiveness. So, like I said, we're going to listen to this TED Talk, and then we'll review it, and then we'll go from there.
In the summer of 2016, I did the sensible thing. I quit my cushy job at a hedge fund to write a play about my family's murder. I told my friends and family that this was about art, but in truth, I was on a spiritual vision quest. I was seeking closure to a relationship with someone that I barely knew, the kid who killed my mother and brother. He was my friend's younger brother, a kid from our neighborhood. He came over a handful of times to raid our family snack cabinet. My mom actually used to wave to him from the van and say, he's going through a hard time. I just want to make sure he knows that I see him. He broke into our house a couple of days before Christmas, looking for some stuff to sell for cash. When he came across my brother Jim asleep on the couch, he panicked, shot him, and fled the scene. Then he realized he forgot his coat. By the time he came back, my mom had found Jim.
I'm done spending an obscene amount of money on takeout every done.
I'm getting back on track with Factor.
Fresh, never.
Because he knew that she recognized him, and to quote him, because she wouldn't stop screaming, he shot and killed her too. He is currently serving back-to-back life sentences in a prison in southwestern Virginia. Over the course of the next 7 years, I somehow managed not to hate him, but my grief and trauma did something a little bit weirder. He became a non-person to me. He wasn't a person, he was the face of all evil. He was the twister that came through and ripped up our house and threw it in some hellish version of Oz. But not a 17-year-old boy, or I realize now, a 24-year-old man. A man who came of age in a cell, if he came of age at all. And as I sat down to write the villain of my play and my life, I realized I had a name, some fractured childhood memories, a brief court document, and nothing else to go on. So I went to the source of all answers, Google. I Googled his prisoner ID number, and that's when the internet sucker punched me in the face. 2/3 of prisoners in his penitentiary spend 23 hours a day in solitary confinement in 8x10 cells with slats for light. Conditions are so bad that in 2012, the entire prison went on a hunger strike. And as I scrolled through case after case of human rights violations at this prison, suddenly, he became a person to me again. I remember the first time I saw Mom and Jim's bodies in the funeral home, how my hand recoiled when I felt the small destructive supernova that the bullet made in the back of Jim's skull. My mom's face just collapsed in on itself. Not her, just flesh and bones in that black dress we'd bought at Kohl's the week before. Those are my most painful memories. But when I pictured him, beaten, starving, crying out in a dark cell, yeah, that was somehow just as painful. And I realized it was because we were still connected. That steel tether of trauma that he hooked into my side when he killed them was still there, and I had been lurching against its pull and dragging him through the mud for the past 7 years, whether I knew it or not. And it was with a little horror that I realized that he may have killed them, but I chose to keep us connected. And so after weighing through all the options, I mean literally every option at my disposal, I realized the only way to get rid of this dude was to forgive him. That was a real bummer of a conclusion to come to. Because the truth was, I thought that I already had forgiven him. I told my friends I forgave him. I told my family I forgave him. I even said, I forgive you in the national news. So if saying you forgive someone is not the same thing as doing it, why was this guy still hooked into my side, dragging me around, making me do dumb things like quit my job to write a play? Turns out there is no fake it till you make it in forgiveness, even though that's exactly what society expects us to do. So how do you forgive effectively once and for all? That question started another Google rabbit hole, and then the theological rabbit hole, and then the psychiatric journal and medical journal rabbit hole, until finally my poor husband came home to a frantic wife, feral, just pacing the apartment, spewing statistics about forgiveness like, did you know that there are 62 passages in the Bible with the word forgive, and 27 with the word forgiveness, and not a single one tells you how to do it? They just say how great it is. It's like the Nike of spiritual gifts. Just do it. Oh. And then there's this Dr. Wayne guy over here who says, to forgive, we've just gotta let go and be like water. What does that mean? My husband approached me very cautiously. Sweetie, what you doing? Trying to forgive the kid who killed my family, but nobody will tell me how. Oh, there are endless 5-star historical Yelp reviews for forgiveness. The sales pitch is fantastic, but literally, what do I do? I think I was asking the wrong question, starting with how, when really what I needed to know was why. Why forgive? Why do it? And that's when I discovered that most of us are forgiving for the wrong reasons. Some victims, like me, try to forgive right away because it's the right thing to do. But if we're honest with ourselves, there's only 3 reasons a victim forgives automatically. 1, you think that forgiving quickly will make you a good person. That's an easy mistake to make, right? If forgiveness is good, a good person should forgive right away.
Right.
But in all my research, I actually didn't find a timeline for forgiveness. Everybody was just really desperately urging us to get around to it because they knew we didn't want to. Even Jesus, when he talks about turning the other cheek, isn't talking about forgiveness. He's talking about nonviolence. There has to be a middle ground between letting someone off the hook right away and going full on eye for an eye on them. 2, victims feel a lot of pressure to forgive from everyone else.
Yep.
It can come from your friends, from your family, from the media, from mixed up religious messaging. But the truth is, everyone wants you to forgive quickly so that they can feel more comfortable and they can move on.
Facts.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Roberts. Listen, no matter how smart you are, even if you're the best neurosurgeon in the world, you don't do
That's a crappy reason to do anything. 3, you think that forgiveness is a shortcut to healing. You think if you skip to the end of the story, you can bypass all the angry, vulnerable, messy healing crap. Spoiler alert, that one will come back to bite you in the butt. For me, it was all 3 reasons. I want to be a good person. I love pleasing other people, and I hate the vulnerable, angry, messy healing crap. But it turns out that forgiveness is such a potent force that none of those reasons were strong enough to make it stick. Just like love, if your motivation is selfish, even a good selfish thing like healing, it will collapse in on itself like a dying star. So why do it? Why forgive? It can't heal you. It won't save you or the other person. Can't make you a good person, at least not all by itself, because that's not what forgiveness is designed to do. Forgiveness is designed to set you free. When you say I forgive you, what you're really saying is, I know what you did. It's not okay. But I recognize that you are more than that. I don't want to hold us captive to this thing anymore. I can heal myself, and I don't need anything from you. And after you say that, and you mean it, then it's just you. No chains, no prisoners, just the good, the bad, and the ugly of whoever that person was from the start. Our culture thinks that vengeance is freedom, but it is a total prison. Any act of violence, whether it's emotional or physical, is this weird, twisted form of intimacy. That's why the Greeks said that a death by a good man was a good death. Think about it. Every time somebody thinks about my mom and my brother, they think about the fact that they're not here. And then they think about the kid who did this. That one act of violence actually bound the three of them together in people's minds for eternity. When we choose vengeance, we're actually signing a blood oath to chain our story to our enemies for the rest of time. Forgiveness is the only real path to freedom. But to get free, you have to get super specific about what exactly it is that you're forgiving, because you cannot forgive something that didn't happen to you. In my research, I came across this idea from Judaism that hit me in the chest. In Judaism, the family can't forgive murderers because they were not killed. They can only forgive the pain, anguish, and grief that the loss caused them. This was a total jackpot moment for me. I had to compartmentalize my damage. Not what happened to Mom and Jim, not what happened to my family, not what happened to society. What happened to me? This is why justice often feels really cold for victims. It's justice's job to assess what is owed. And it is the criminal justice system's job to assess what is owed to society, not to victims. It is up to us to get really clear individually on what we are owed. You can't forgive your father for beating your mother. You can only forgive him for how sad, alienated, and angry that made you feel. I couldn't forgive him for killing Mom and Jim. I'm still here. I had to assess my damages. The wedding that I had without the two of them, the parts of me that my husband and kids will never get to understand without knowing the two of them. The way my life was supposed to start at 22, and he broke it. My inherent sense of safety and belonging, which I gotta be honest, I don't think are coming back. Those are my damages. Most of us avoid forgiveness like the plague because we do not want to look at our wounds. Wounds are scary, they are nasty, they are icky. It is why most of us look away when we donate blood. It is way easier to take all of that emotion and channel it into rage at another person. And I gotta be honest with you, I say, do it. Thought this would be about forgiveness, huh? It's an important part of the process. Anger is important. It is the fire that cauterizes our wounds and lets them scar over and heal. Too much anger, and yeah, you'll get third-degree burns. Without a little bit of heat, you'll never scar over, and you'll never know exactly what happened to you. And if you don't know what happened to you, you can't know what you're forgiving. But once you know what's happened to you, it's time for some good old-fashioned justice. Sorry, I married a Texan. So what, in justice's name, am I owed? An apology? An explanation? A front row seat to their torture chamber? Maybe. Not the last part, but maybe you are owed those things in general. And 9 times out of 10, if you ask for those things, you will get them, which is why forgiveness is not the right thing in most situations.
If you're thinking about changing your career, I really recommend you pick a career where you can change up.
Forgiveness is only right when waiting for what we're owed comes at too high a cost. In all those years, with that guy chained to my side, I got a lot done. I went to grad school. I married a wonderful man. I started a career that I honestly really love. But I did it all a little more slowly. And I wasn't just dragging him along, I was dragging my mother and brother in the process, twisting the 3 of them up together in those chains. And pretty soon, that little posse started to crowd me out of my own body and my own experience. And one day, losing myself in order to punish him and keep the 2 of them alive felt like too high a cost to bear. It was there, in that crossroads, when I knew what had happened to me. I knew what I was owed. And I decided that choosing myself was more important than being right. That's when I was ready to forgive. So I stepped away from Google, and I didn't ask any more questions, and I wrote him a letter. I tore unused pages out of my mom's journals, actually, and I wrote. I told him that what happened on December 19th, 2008 was not okay, and would probably never be okay for either of us. But just because it wasn't okay, that didn't mean he owed me anything. Not an apology, not an explanation, not his role as my villain. I told him that I hated to be reduced to one thing that happened to me one day. I yearned to be more, to be whole. And I didn't think that I could do that if I looked at another person and reduced him to one thing he did one day and made evil the sum of his parts. I told him that I wished him a lifetime full of healing and that I forgave him. And then, without thinking, I plopped that letter into a mailbox on the corner of Flatbush Avenue and Church. For the first 10 steps, there was this lightness of being. And then that lightness started to feel like the lurch in your stomach when you hit a spiritual tripwire. My chest unwound, it burst, and suddenly I was alone with myself. I mean, really alone, giving birth to a stranger, saying hello to a girl that I hadn't spoken to in 7 years. Sometimes I miss him. Not him, the monster that I created. Things were a lot harsher in black and white, but they were a lot simpler when I had a villain to fight, and more familiar. As long as he was around, Mom and Jim were never that far away. They were characters just off stage, waiting in the wings, the rest of us on stage talking about them. But my story was about the three of them, always. To get free, I had to get clear on exactly what contract I was shredding. But once I did that, I found myself alone, center stage, in the spotlight, with endless possibilities. Real forgiveness has to let go of all expectations. You can't expect a certain outcome. You can't expect them to reply. You can't even expect to know who you're going to be on the other side of it. Forgiveness is really tricky. It is one of those tools that is only properly wielded when we have healed just enough that we have nothing left to lose. If you're still hemorrhaging in pain, it is too soon to forgive. If you can't roll up your sleeve and show me your scars and tell me exactly what happened to you, it's still too soon to forgive. But it's never too late to let go of your villains and reclaim yourself. And if you're ready to let it all go, the grief, the pain, the anger, the trauma, and you're open to finding out who you are instead of always trying to prove yourself, I gotta be honest with you. All this forgiveness hype is legit. 10 out of 10, 5 stars, would highly recommend. Thank you.
So, like I said, that's a TED Talk on forgiveness. And I think it's pretty awesome. You can definitely find it on Google. On YouTube. You definitely find it in, this is my reality. Hit the like button if you're liking the information you're receiving here, the what do they call it in YouTube terms, content that you're receiving. Hit the subscribe button, hit all my buttons, notifications, so you know if I upload or go live or doing anything on the internet, uploading a video. So today's video is about forgiveness. You're out there under the sound of my voice. Have you forgiven? Chime down in the comments and let me know how many people you've had to forgive and how many people you still haven't forgiven, if you know your number, and how long it took you to forgive. What was your journey like? Were you angry every time? Did you get triggered every time you thought about those people that hurt you or hurt someone you love? Are you still grieving? Have you moved forward in your grief? Did you have people in your life telling you need to move on, you need to move forward, and you need to get over it? My response to that is always going to be, it's not your grief. Shut the hell up. It's my grief. I advise you to use that statement. Maybe not shut the hell up, but, you know, a nicer version of that. which may be allow me time to grieve properly. And properly can't be defined by other people. It can only be defined by the person that's trying to forgive or the person that's grieving. You don't get to tell somebody when they can be done being traumatized. And that's not to say for the people that it'll go over their head and they'll miss it. It's not to say that you're going to be walking around every day in grief. We know, A, that wouldn't be normal. Probably would need to see a psychiatrist about, determining whether or not you have complicated grief, which typically is like, oh, excuse me. Sorry. Now that I think about it, I didn't go to sleep. Did I go to sleep last night? I can't remember. Or maybe I didn't wake. I was still up at like 6 in the morning. Anyways, maybe that's why I'm tired. I can't even recall. That's crazy. Forgot what I was saying. Oh, I was saying about complicated grief. Complicated grief usually is grief where someone was unalived, like the young lady on the TED Talk was speaking about. That's complicated grief, because that grief, no matter what, no matter who says something, even if the perpetrator tells you why they unalived your loved one, it'll never make sense. There won't be any answer that will suffice why they did that horrible thing. Even if they were unalived by the person who was trying to unalive them. The grief of that parent or that husband, that wife losing that loved one, even if it was in self-defense, it doesn't matter. Those people are still grieving, and we have to allow them to do it. It's unfair. It seems unfair. Lots of things we can go down the list in our life. Oh, excuse me, guys. Of all of the things that are unfair. It's a part of life. You just have to make those adjustments in life and try your best to make sure those adjustments don't interrupt your progress in whatever it is you're doing. Whether that's raising your family, working every day, being a caregiver to someone, whatever it might be. Like I said, for me, forgiveness is releasing yourself from the burden of anger. Because the reason people don't forgive is typically because they're so angry about something. That either happened to them directly or indirectly, which means typically it happened to someone they loved, someone in their life that they cared about. And like I said earlier, there's a million reasons we can utilize to justify why we're not forgiving that person. It could be they, raped you, that they sexually assaulted you, they, molested you. It could be they, murked your father, your mother, your granddaddy. It could be that they broke in your house and, injured your child or injured you or unalived your whole family, like the young lady was saying on the TED Talk. It could be the most egregious act that keeps you with the stamp of I don't have to forgive, because it's justifiable that I don't have to forgive the person that molested me, or the person that cheated me out of my money, or the person that misdiagnosed my mom, or whatever it might be. The mechanic who overcharged me, and I'm mad now. I don't want to forgive them. Now I hate all mechanics. And I'm not trivializing it. I'm just simply saying that we're all human beings and we all deal with grief differently. We all deal with our emotions differently. A lot of times our emotions are dealt with similarly, but it's still different. So the reason I say that, for example, if someone let's say a family of 5, their mom passes and their wife passes, right? So dad might be, very stoic because society has taught him, or maybe his family taught him, that you have to be strong for your family. That's an expectation that they put on people sometimes, especially fathers or parents. So you gotta be strong, and so that's what you're trying to do. Or maybe you think that's what your loved one, your wife who passed away, would have wanted you to do. You have the oldest child, and they are in charge of everything, and they are worn out from being in charge of everything. Because maybe the mom was passing from cancer or something, right? And they were the top caregiver, right? You got the middle child who is really maybe don't even know where they fit in the grief process. The baby of the family who is probably and possibly spoiled to death and maybe had a very close relationship with the mother is trying to climb inside the casket with her. And all kinds of people at that funeral, wake, or whatever are judging them, even if they don't say anything. They are. They're all being judged. They're on display for judgment. Why is she not crying? Why is she crying so much? Why is this person doing this? They showed up late. How dare she wear that to the funeral? And on and on and on. All of those people in that family had a different relationship with that person that passed. The husband had a different relationship than the oldest child had, than the middle child had, than the baby had, than the husband had, or father. They're all going to experience that grief differently. And so, since we're all different, we have to allow people to experience that and move through that grief differently. We have to stop putting time limits on people's grief. Think about it. Think about the times in your life where you were hurt. You couldn't get out of bed. You were traumatized. You had not one friend in the world. Nobody checked on you. Everybody walked out of your life when you needed them the most. So many people condemned you for whatever it was that they felt you shouldn't be doing. You should be grown enough. You should grow up. You should be, the executive by now. Why do you still work at Chick-fil-A? Why don't you have a car? You're 45 years old. Why is your husband in jail? Why are all your children went to prison? Why you didn't graduate in the top 5% of your class? Why of the world? You still working at that little job? Why is he gay? Why is she bisexual? Why are they so loud? Why are they not loud enough? Whatever. Fill in the blank with all the things that people sit around and judge each other for. Me included. I just happen to be a social worker and a therapist, and the social work education tells you that people have we have the right to self-determine. So whatever poor decision that I think you're making, it's not my job to tell you that it's poor and it's a bad decision. It's my job, if I'm a social worker for you in that moment or in that day or whatever, to try to help you figure out how you're going to overcome. What are the resources in that community or in your family or within yourself? They're going to help you with whatever it is that you're dealing with that day or that week, that month, whatever it is. My job as a therapist is to keep your secrets confidential. Whatever information you're giving me is confidential, unless it's to harm yourself or others. Then I have the duty to report. But my job is to listen. And oftentimes offer some sort of coping mechanisms for whatever it is you came here for. Whatever trauma you probably had or issue you're dealing with, it's just usually my job to listen to you. And, really, when you show up after you do the confidentiality and what you expect to get out of therapy, so on and so forth, my job is to listen and, figure out what methods are going to work best for you to cope with whatever your trauma is. And sometimes people come to therapy and they don't want you to tell them anything. They just want to come and yell to a stranger because that stranger doesn't know their family, doesn't know what they've been through, has no real contact with the people they know. And like I said, it's confidential, protected by law, right? So I don't have a reason per se to feel ashamed or judged or anything if I go in and I talk to this person that I don't know. They don't know my family, so whatever it is that I'm going to tell them about my life, because I just need to get it out. When I leave there, it stays, right? You know, you may have grown up in a family where people told you, yeah, can't go to therapy, ain't nothing wrong with you, you just need to man up and move on and whatever it is that they told you. But I'm telling you this right now, everybody, including all the therapists, okay, deserve to be sitting on somebody's couch. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be sitting there so that they can, you know, diagnose you and any of those things. I'm simply saying so that you could talk about things that maybe you're afraid to talk about with anyone else. Or maybe you're ashamed to talk about with anyone else. Maybe you are, you know, homosexual, but your family won't allow it. Maybe you're bisexual, but your family won't allow it. Maybe you're thinking about, you know, harming yourself, but you don't have anyone in your family that you can talk to about it. Or harming others. Maybe you think, you know, you're struggling with, I want to cheat on my husband because he cheated on me, or vice versa, or I caught him cheating or her cheating. What the hell am I going to do about this? Because if we get a divorce, everybody going to ask, why did they get a divorce? Just saying. You know, maybe you came to therapy because you're not really understanding why you continuously get rejected by other people, or why you're not loved by anyone, at least in your mind. Maybe you have anxiety, you need some sort of positive reinforcement or some medication to kind of help you with the anxiety, or discover why you have the anxiety, or whatever it is that you're dealing with. Therapy doesn't always have to be, you know, gloom and doom. You can come to therapy and talk about whatever it is. It could just be, you know what, I've had trouble finding a job and now I found one, but my supervisor is crazy or whatever it is, and I'm having a tough time. Or, you know what, nobody in my family understands postpartum depression. They don't believe in it. They think I'm crazy. Or if I told them about it, they would, you know, malign me in some way or make me feel guilty about it or tell me I'm crazy. But hey, I can go and talk about this postpartum depression with this person I don't know. And at least I can get it off my chest. It doesn't have to be forever. Typically, if you're in therapy forever, there's something else going on. But at any rate, shouldn't be embarrassed by it. Shouldn't be embarrassed by it. Lots of people have mental illness or think they have mental illness and their family don't believe in it. She don't have ADHD. She just needs to sit down somewhere and shut the hell up. She just need a whooping. Mental illness is real. Mental instability is real. And just because some people would like to ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist or, you know, deny it, whatever it is, that doesn't make it not exist. It still exists. It's still a thing. And it's always going to be. But it's not something you should be ashamed of. We all have trauma. And there is a large part of the population that does have some form of mental illness. It doesn't mean like all mental illness is not severe. Let me start there. It doesn't all look like the people you see in the movie that are walking around back and forth talking to themselves, or the lady who has all this excessive amount of, you know, makeup on and, you know, the itching. You know, it's not that. In some cases it is that, and in some cases it's way worse than that. In some cases, people end up unalived. And so that's why I say we have to take the shame out of it and destigmatize it so that people feel safe enough to come and talk to someone about it. And when I say people, I'm talking about your 8-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 14-year-old, the 22-year-old, the 68-year-old, the 72-year-old. Depression doesn't have an age. be depressed at any age. I've had clients that are, elderly, and, they struggling. Their whole life has been about, them working at Ford Motor Company. And now they're a retired engineer from wherever. And everybody's telling them, oh, you put in your 60 years or your 50 years, and now you get to go enjoy your life. You get to go enjoy, the fruits of your labor, and go, on a cruise with your wife, and, y'all get to go to Paris that time now, and y'all get to, whatever it is, go play with your kids, or, your grandkids at this point. It doesn't always end up that way. And I've had tons of clients where they've lost themselves because now their daily structure is gone. Remember, I was saying earlier in this video, human beings, we love categories and we love routines. This is how we, our societies are managed. You gotta have a routine. You get up in the morning, you gotta have a job to go to, or you gotta go to school. You have things to do. Okay, check. We got things to do, honey. Right? Yeah. We like to categorize people so we know where we can place them and how we can judge them. It's just a fact. But yeah, so then they're 72, they've retired. What do I do with my life? One of my jobs, I'm a hospice social worker. So in that role, all of my patients are actively dying. Yep. So if you see me going off on somebody on the panel, it's probably why. No, I'm playing. I'm joking. It's my job could be heavy because you're dealing with people's emotions or lots of unhealthy behavior and what people are, utilizing to try to manage whatever or try to cope with whatever they have going on currently, or the things that they never were able to complete or work through in the past. And like I said, as a social worker for hospice, all my patients are actively dying. So they have caregivers that are their family members. Some of them don't have caregivers that are their family members. Some of them stay in their homes. Some of them stay in skilled nursing facilities and things like that. Some of them have money. Some of them have nothing. Some of them have loved ones that are, still coming around and visit them. Some of them have nobody. And it becomes difficult whenever when you're elderly and, most of your friends are gone because they all have, met death's door, as we all will. So you start looking around at your mentality. At your morality. Not morality. The word I'm looking for is not morality, but the fact that you're going to die too. There's a word that I can't think of it right now, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. You feeling like a burden because your family has moved you into their house and they got to take care of you every day. So you'd rather go live in a skilled nursing facility because you don't want to feel like a burden. Even though that family member hasn't said that to you, you picked it up. You picked up on it, or you've decided that's what they think anyways. And you don't want to be that person for them. We're all struggling with something. So choose kindness. Choose patience. Choose love. Choose happiness. It costs nothing. And typically, if you put positive reinforcement in your life, positive thoughts, you say these things, especially positive affirmations, they'll start to become your words. They'll start to become your thoughts. And eventually they'll become your actions. So like I said, this topic tonight was about forgiveness. Chime down in the comments. Let me know how many people you still haven't forgiven. Who deserves forgiveness, truly? How do you cope with not forgiving? What happens if the person passes away before you actually mend fences with them? How you deal with that type of grief? Are you the person that's telling somebody else they need to move on and move forward? Because honestly, when people have things like death happen to them and their family, you know, for me, I try to just say, whenever I call them or, you know, come in contact with them, how can I help? 3 words. Not, I don't say, let me know if you need help, because most people that are grieving aren't going to let you know that they need help. They don't want to feel like it's a burden. They probably don't even want to talk to you, because they got called by 42,000 people, all the friends and family telling them about, you know, sending their condolences, which people do because they feel that's what they should do, to try to at least let you know they love you and that, you know, you can be there for them or whatever. But sometimes what we don't realize is that person has gotten bombarded by 5,000 of their friends, loved ones, and whomever else asking them about the death of whomever. And those people all mean well. We just trying to show them that we love, we support them, right? But every time they get a phone call, every time they get another text or an email about their person that passed away, their loved one, it's just another reminder of what has happened. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying what I do, which is when I do call and, you know, say whatever it is I'm going to say, I try to do this and just say, how can I help? Sometimes I'll do this. I'll just go to that person's home, you know, just get a book. I'm just going to read my book, and I'm just going to sit in this other room, and I'll be here for whatever you need. You know, they have these things called love languages. And so your love language may be, you know, spending time, quality time. So you might go spend that quality time. Your love language may be, my love language is gifts giving. Hey, Miss Joy Israel. Shout out to Miss Joy. My love language is gift giving. I love to give and I love to receive. I know. Such a stretch to think that about Chanel, right? Other people's love language is, I'm trying to think of all the different love languages. I think one is like affirmations. Another one is like quality time, giving and receiving gifts. It's 5 or 6 of them. I can't remember what they all are. But when people are grieving, just let them grieve. Just be helpful. Just say, how can I help? So, and the reason I say, you know, we have to be careful because it's a tricky thing, because like everybody's going to deal with or respond with that death in their family or that grief that they're dealing with differently, right? So if I was dealing with some sort of death or something like that, and then, you know, people want to show up at your house and all those things because they mean well. They want to, you know, support you and whatever else. And for someone like me, I love people, you know. But because I love people and who I am, I'm now going to be like, okay, people are coming over. Okay, I need to make gumbo, or I need to make, you know, a pot roast. I need to make sure when the people are here, there's water, everything's clean. Like, and the people that are coming to try to just be there for you and love on you or whatever, they don't even recognize. They just showing up, and they don't recognize that indirectly that might be a burden to you, and you may not realize it's a burden to you at the time, because that's your normal state, right? Is to be helpful. So if you come over and you're and now I have all these people in my house, that's what is going to happen. I'm like, okay, let me make a charcuterie board. We got to go to let's make sure there's hand soap in the restroom and everything is filled up and everything is clean. And, you know, that's me. That's Chanel. Because I want to comfort others. I mean, it's naturally who I am, right? I'm a whole social worker and therapist. So my natural state is helping people. It's the one thing I could do every day and probably never get tired of, outside of shopping and eating out and vacationing. Those are my 4 restraints. friends. I'm self-aware, okay? Just let's call it thing. I'm self-aware. But there may be other people who are introverted. So if you coming over to visit the person that lost someone, and that person's an introvert, all of these people, this influx of people come to their home, it's like it's putting them in a situation where it's like it's an overload of like small talk that introverts, they hate that because they feel like they've been fake and phony, and they don't probably even, they're not interested in whatever you're saying anyway, usually, unless you're in their circle. So if you're going over to someone's house because you know their father passed or their sister passed or whatever it is, that complicated grief, you have to remember that that person might need a minute, and that even though you're thinking I'm here to support and whatever else, just remember that 42,000 other people that love that person has probably called and told them the same thing. Like I said earlier, it's just a reminding them of what's going on. Because like I remember when my mom passed, it was so bizarre to me because it took me so long before I could actually say she died or she passed, like without crying. It was years. And I remember one time there was a student loan, like I had a private student loan, right? The kind you get when you got good credit or whatever. And my mom had co-signed on it, right? When I was in college. And, you know, I was paying it back like clockwork. But something happened in me and my husband's finances. I don't remember what it was. But whatever happened, the loan was like back burner type stuff. Like it was just like, yeah, we'll pay you, but you know, we can't afford to pay whatever it was we were paying at the time, whenever this was. This was in 2012. And I remember the student loan or the loan people called us or called me one day. And, you know, I was like, because I paid like religiously, right? And they called me and they were like, hey, you know, we need to, you know, collect the money for the student loan. And I'm like, trying to get out the words that I can't pay you right now for whatever the reason was, but also, I think the guy said something like, well, if you can't pay it, how about Miss So-and-so, my mom? And it just triggered me immediately. Because now I have to say, she can't pay it either because she's no longer here. She died. You know what I'm saying? It was so hard. That conversation took me out. It was so hard because I couldn't, it was so difficult for me to say she died. It just was like ripping out my soul, like to say that. It's a very finite, like final thing, and I couldn't do it. I just broke down, you know. And the worst part is that the person that was calling, the collector guy or whatever, he didn't miss a beat. He didn't give a shit about the fact that I was saying, you know, my mom passed and this is what I'm going through. He didn't care. Zero care. Zero empathy. That's life sometimes, though. What are you gonna do? Because as far as he was concerned, he's calling on a financial matter, okay? And his sole job is to get the money at all costs. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So however people manage their forgiveness and their trauma, it's their forgiveness and their trauma. It's in your time. But like I said, remember what I said about forgiveness. To me, forgiveness is basically freeing yourself from the burden of anger. And don't justify why you're angry and why you can't forgive. And like I said before, there's 1,000 reasons people could say why they can't forgive this person. And everybody would agree, this is why I can't forgive them either. So if it's someone, your family member was unalived by this person, I can't forgive them. My cousin, daddy, brother, uncle, next door neighbor, school teacher sexually assaulted me, I can't forgive them. Some of the most egregious things, people are like, I'm not there yet. And most people would say, you know what, you're well within your rights to not forgive. But I'm saying to you this, I can't tell you when you should forgive or that you have to forgive, but if you want to free yourself from the burden of anger, forgiveness is required. And then the path to freedom from that is you have to figure out how you want to respond when you're triggered by whatever it is that that person or people did to you. Whether it was, like I said, really complicated, like, sexual assault, or someone unalived your family member, or you had a miscarriage, or that person that stole your money or your car, that friend that slept with your husband, the husband that was cheating on you, the wife that was cheating on you, the husband or boyfriend who had a breakup baby or a side baby or whatever, the person that stole your rent money. There's all kinds of reasons that we could justify why we ain't forgiving that person. But not forgiving them is really the equivalent of like getting poison and then drinking it yourself, because it keeps you stuck. Because a lot of times those people that did something atrocious to you or egregious to you don't really give a shit. That's why they were able to do something egregious and horrible to you. They don't give a shit. Some of them, not all of them. Some people just make poor decisions or whatever. But they probably don't give a shit. Or sometimes people are unaware. They're not even aware that they've offended you. That's another thing people have to work on. Because how you going to be walking around hella mad at somebody and they don't even know why you mad? Guess who has this problem? Her. My ass be mad. So listen, and it's something I got to work on. But like, yeah, you've done something to me, or I've had a bad day. Whatever it is that I'm mad about, it's best that you leave me the hell alone, because probably gonna get your feelings hurt. And yes, this is coming from a social worker and a whole ass therapist. Okay, yeah. If I'm quiet, there's a problem. I can guarantee you. If Chanel is walking around quiet, there's a whole ass problem somewhere. And you probably want to stay out of the way. So if I'm quiet and I'm walking around this house quiet or around my job quiet for 3 days, it's probably best to just not even just let me be. Because typically, I have this thing, I always say it's a burden and a curse, but like just truly, I have whatever goes on in the day, I typically once I go to sleep, even if I'm mad at somebody, I'll wake up the next morning and be like, okay, who was I? I was mad at somebody, like trying to think about why was I mad? You know what I'm saying? So that I can continue to be mad at them. But my personality, God, how He made me, I just can't hold on to it I can't. So that's why I say, if I am being quiet and I ain't talking, that means that joy that comes in the morning didn't come this morning. It ain't come this morning, tomorrow morning, or the morning after that. So that means it's probably bad, because honestly, my personality, the way I'm set up, is I typically forgive people, even if they don't deserve it, because I don't want that burden of anger. I have shit to do. I have a whole life. I'm full of life to go enjoy. I don't have time to be mad at your ass about some stupid shit. Like, I really just don't, if I'm being honest. Plus, I'm just a person who's worked with people who are at a disadvantage for 20 plus years, meaning poor people, people who have been assaulted by somebody, people who are, have a myriad of problems, whether it's, all the trauma that they've had, losing their jobs, people who are dealing with death and dying, all these kind of things. I don't have time when I'm dealing with all of this type of stuff every single day, trying to help people out of their problems and help them solve whatever they have going on, that I don't have really a lot of time to deal with you doing some petty shit. I just don't have time. You know what I have time for after I deal with all of the people that I've had to deal with that day? All my patients and whomever else. I got time to go to Papados. I got time to go eat out, you know what I mean? Enjoy an ice cream cone from somewhere. Come home, love on my husband, watch a little bit of YouTube if I'm, in the mood to do that. And, just go plan my, comeback of whatever it is that I'm coming back on tomorrow. Or a vacation. That's usually what I'm planning. A vacation of some sort. Or a shopping trip. My husband would probably agree with all that. But I'm going to go ahead, guys, and get off of here, because I've been on here for, over an hour. My dog is at my door whining, so my guess is he has to go out. Y'all hear him? But if you like the content that you are receiving, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button. It's a free and easy way to support my channel. Until next time, bye, guys. Have a good weekend, because I think today's Friday. It's the Friday the 13th. Bye, guys. Hit that like button. Love y'all all.